Brothers and sisters, imagine witnessing the most important night in human history, not as a distant observer reading ancient lines, but as one who stands unseen in the quiet, holding breath so as not to disturb the mystery unfolding. Imagine the night when the Son of God came into the world, not amid thunder or crowds, but in a place so small and forgotten that history itself would have passed it by had heaven not chosen it. Tonight, we share with you an extraordinary vision of that night, a vision described by Maria Valtorta, an Italian mystic of the 20th century whose life was hidden and frail, yet whose inner sight was vast. Through her writings, especially in what is known as the poem of the man-god, she described scenes from the life of Jesus and Mary with an intimacy that feels less like reading and more like remembering. What follows is not an argument, not an explanation, but a scene slowly opening before the eyes, like a story whispered in the dark, inviting us to step closer without speaking. Manger, I still see the inside of this poor rocky shelter where Mary and Joseph have found refuge, sharing their fate with the animals. It is not truly a stable as painters imagine, but a hollowed space in stone, irregular, rough, and smelling of earth and straw. The walls are uneven, scarred by time and weather, and the ceiling slopes awkwardly, pierced by cracks through which the night peers inside. The air is cold, the kind of cold that settles into bones rather than biting sharply, the cold of a winter night that is calm and clear. When the stars seem frozen in place, a small fire burns near the entrance, or what can be called an entrance, merely a gap shielded by Joseph's cloak, hanging heavy and still. The fire dozes like a tired guardian, its embers glowing faintly, as if reluctant to give more warmth than necessary. The animals are quiet, sunk into their own half-sleep, breathing slowly, their warmth mingling with the cold air. Mary lies upon the hay, resting, yet not sleeping. She gently lifts her head and looks around, her movements so light that they seem to disturb nothing, not even the shadows. Her eyes fall upon Joseph, seated nearby, his head bowed onto his chest. He had intended to stay awake, to keep watch, to be vigilant in this strange and solemn hour, but weariness has overtaken him. His hands rest loosely in his lap, his posture that of a man who has labored much and loved deeply. Mary smiles, a tender smile, not amused, not indulgent, but full of gratitude and quiet affection. She rises with care, making less noise than a butterfly landing on a rose, and sits up before kneeling upon the hay. She begins to pray. There is no urgency in her movements, no tension. Her arms open gently, not fully outstretched like a cross, but held forward and upward, palms turned toward heaven, as if ready to receive a gift already promised. Her face carries a blissful smile, serene and luminous even in the dimness. She seems tireless in this posture, as though time itself has slowed to accommodate her prayer. Then she bows her face down onto the hay, pressing her forehead to the rough straw, entering into a deeper, more intense prayer, one that lasts longer, one that seems to draw her inward beyond sight. Joseph stirs. A chill passes through him, or perhaps an instinct, and he awakens to notice that the fire has nearly gone out. The stable is cloaked in shadow, the kind that thickens when flames fade. He rises quietly, mindful of Mary, and tosses a handful of fine heather onto the embers. The fire responds, awakening with a soft crackle, small flames licking upward. He adds larger twigs, then thicker branches, because the cold must be biting, especially near the entrance where he sits. The winter night is serene, the sky clear, but the cold seeps through every crevice of this ruin. Joseph warms his hands, then slips off his sandals and stretches his feet toward the fire, sighing softly as warmth returns. When the fire is fully ablaze and its light steady, he turns instinctively to look for Mary. He sees nothing, not even the faint whiteness of her veil that had earlier traced a pale line upon the dark hay. For a moment, he wonders if the shadows deceive him. He stands and approaches her resting place slowly, reverently, as if walking on holy ground without yet knowing it. "Are you not sleeping, Mary?" he asks gently. There is no answer. He repeats the question, then again, a quiet concern in his voice. At last she stirs and replies softly, "I am praying." Her voice is calm, distant in a way that is not absence but depth. "Do you need anything?" he asks. "No, Joseph. Try to sleep a little, at least rest." He nods, though he knows rest will not come easily. "I will try," he says, "but praying does not tire me." They exchange a simple good night, as spouses who share more than words can express. Mary resumes her prayerful position, her presence once again blending into the dimness. Joseph returns to the fire and kneels beside it, determined not to succumb to sleep again. He prays with his hands pressed to his face, elbows resting on his knees, his whole body bent in humility. Occasionally, he removes his hands to tend the fire, adding wood, adjusting the embers, then returns to his fervent prayer. His lips move silently, forming words shaped by years of faith and obedience. Except for the crackling of the wood and the occasional sound of the donkey stamping a hoof, the stable is wrapped in silence, deep and expectant, as though the world itself is holding its breath. And then something changes. A sliver of moonlight slips through a crack in the ceiling, thin as a blade, pale and precise. It moves slowly, deliberately, as the moon rises higher in the sky, as if seeking something or someone. The light stretches across stone and straw, creeping forward until it reaches Mary. It reaches Mary. There it rests upon her head, crowning her with radiance so gentle it does not startle, yet so pure it seems otherworldly. Mary lifts her head as if answering a call that no one else can hear. She rises to her knees once more, her movements fluid, unhurried. Her face, bathed in moonlight, appears transfigured, glowing softly, and an otherworldly smile spreads across her features. She seems to be listening, seeing, receiving. What does she see? What does she hear? What does she feel? Only she could tell what passed between heaven and her soul in that radiant hour of her maternity. The light around her grows. It grows steadily, not in bursts, not suddenly, but like a tide rising under the pull of the moon. It seems to descend from above, yet also to emanate from the humble things surrounding her, and above all, to radiate from her very body. Her dark blue garment shifts in tone, becoming softer, lighter, like the blue of forget-me-not flowers. Her hands and face take on a bluish hue, like someone illuminated by the glow of a vast, pale sapphire. This color, reminiscent, though gentler, of visions of paradise, spreads over everything. It clothes the space, purifies it, transforms it, making it resplendent beyond imagining. Bland. The light flows more and more from Mary's body, absorbing the moonlight until the moon itself seems pale in comparison. It is as though all the light heaven can give is being drawn toward her, gathered and held. She becomes the keeper of the light, the living vessel of a radiance destined for the world. This light is blessed, boundless, immeasurable, eternal, divine. Its coming is heralded not by sound, but by a visual symphony, particles of light that grow and multiply, rising like incense, descending like a flood, spreading like a veil that touches everything. Lots. The ceiling, once dark and smoky with cracks and cobwebs and precariously balanced debris, now appears like the vaulted ceiling of a royal hall. Every large stone gleams like a block of silver. Every crack glimmers like opal. Every cobweb becomes a canopy woven of silver and diamonds. A lizard hibernating between two rocks looks like an emerald jewel, forgotten by a queen. A cluster of sleeping bats appears as a precious onyx chandelier, suspended in shadow. The hay hanging from the highest manger is no longer grass, but strands of pure silver swaying gently, like the flowing mane of a celestial creature. The lower manger, dark with age and use, now seems a block of burnished silver, polished and luminous, pawned. The walls appear draped in brocade, where white silk vanishes beneath pearly embroidery that rises in delicate relief. And the floor, what is the floor now? It is crystal, illuminated from within by radiant white light. Protruding stones resemble roses of light scattered in homage, while the hollows seem like precious cups from which perfumes and unseen aromas might rise. The light grows ever brighter, intense, to the point of being unbearable to the eyes. Within it, as if absorbed by a veil of incandescent glory, the Virgin disappears. Then the light softens. It becomes bearable once more, gentle again, like dawn after brilliance. And there she is, Mary, holding her newborn son in her arms. A tiny baby, rosy and plump, moving instinctively, flailing and stretching his little hands, no bigger than rosebuds. His feet kick softly, small enough to rest within the hollow of a rose. He cries with a trembling voice, delicate like that of a newborn lamb. His tiny mouth opens, shaped like a wild strawberry, revealing a little tongue, moist and living, announcing with its first cry that the eternal has entered time. Joseph does not immediately understand what his eyes are seeing. At first, he thinks the light has played a trick on his weary sight, that the long night and the cold have blurred the edges of reality. He shields his face with one hand, blinking slowly, afraid that if he looks too directly, the vision might vanish. But the light does not flee. It does not flicker or retreat, like a flame disturbed by wind. It remains calm, steady, alive, and in its softened glow, he sees Mary standing, no longer kneeling, no longer bowed, but upright and still, as though the whole universe has arranged itself around her posture. And she is holding something close to her heart. Someone, Manda. Joseph rises, his movements hesitant, reverent, every step measured, as though the ground beneath his feet has become sacred. He does not speak. Words feel dangerous now, too fragile for what fills the air. The animals, which had been restless at times through the night, are utterly still. Even the fire seems to burn without sound, its crackling hushed, its flames subdued in the presence of a greater light. And Mary turns slightly, just enough for Joseph to see the child more clearly. The baby rests against her breast, wrapped not in royal cloth, not in silk or linen, but in simple coverings that cannot hide his glory, only humble it. His skin glows softly, not with the harsh shine of flame, but with the warmth of life itself, new and vulnerable. His small chest rises and falls, each breath a miracle unfolding in silence. Joseph's heart pounds. He feels it in his throat, in his hands, in his knees, that threaten to give way beneath him. This is the moment he has awaited, without fully understanding it. The promise entrusted to him, now made flesh before his eyes. He falls to his knees, not out of habit, not from ritual, but because his body knows no other response. His head bows low, his forehead nearly touching the ground, his whole being folded into humility. Mary watches him with eyes filled not with triumph, but with a quiet joy that trembles like light upon water. She does not speak yet. She looks down at the child, and as she does, the light seems to pulse gently, as though responding to her gaze. The baby stirs, his tiny hands opening and closing, fingers curling instinctively, as if grasping at the air, at life, at the world he has come to save. Bond. He cries again softly, a fragile sound that carries more power than thunder. It is the cry of hunger, of cold, of need, the cry of a child who depends entirely on the arms that hold him. Mary draws him closer, her movements instinctive and tender. She rocks him gently, swaying just enough to soothe, and hums without realizing she is doing so, a sound barely audible, older than words, shaped by love itself. Giant. Joseph lifts his head slightly, daring now to look more fully. Tears fill his eyes, not sudden or violent, but slow and heavy, slipping down his cheeks without his noticing. He sees the tiny face, the closed eyes, the delicate curve of the mouth that only moments ago cried out to announce his arrival. This is the one spoken of by prophets, awaited by generations, promised to Abraham and David. Yet he lies here like any other newborn, small, helpless, utterly dependent. Mond. The light continues to soften, settling into the space like a gentle dawn. The royal splendor that transformed stone into silver and straw into jewels does not vanish, but it recedes, allowing the humble reality of the shelter to reappear. The rocks are rocks again. The hay is hay. The manger is worn and rough. Yet nothing is truly the same. Even in its poverty, the place is marked forever by what it has held. Mary slowly lowers herself onto the hay, careful, attentive to the child in her arms. She sits, leaning slightly against the manger for support, her posture protective, enclosing him within the circle of her body. The baby quiets, his cries fading into small sounds, breaths, sighs, the soft murmurs of a newborn drifting towards sleep. His head rests beneath her chin, his warmth spreading through her, anchoring her to the earth, even as heaven lingers close. Joseph rises at last, his legs stiff, his heart still trembling. He approaches them, stopping a short distance away, unsure whether to come closer or remain where he is. Mary looks up and meets his gaze, and in her eyes he finds reassurance, an invitation without words. He steps forward, slowly kneeling beside her, close enough now to see every detail. The tiny eyelashes resting against the child's cheeks, the faint crease between his brows, the delicate rise of his breath. Neither of them speaks. Speech feels unnecessary, almost intrusive. The silence is full, alive, weighted with meaning. Outside, the world continues unaware. The night sky stretches vast and indifferent above the hills of Bethlehem. Somewhere, a dog barks in the distance. Somewhere, a traveler turns in his sleep. Somewhere, a city dreams of nothing more than tomorrow's labor. Yet here, in this hidden place, eternity has entered time without announcement. Mary adjusts the coverings around the child, tucking them closer to shield him from the cold. Though he is the light of the world, he shivers like any infant born into winter. Joseph notices and rises to add more wood to the fire, building it carefully so the warmth will spread without smoke. He positions himself between the entrance and Mary, his body forming a barrier against the night air that creeps through the gap beneath his cloak. The donkey lifts its head, ears flicking, dark eyes reflecting the firelight and the lingering glow. The ox exhales deeply, its breath visible in the cold air. They seem drawn closer, instinctively aware that something extraordinary rests among them. Their warmth adds to the fragile comfort of the shelter, their presence a silent witness to what words cannot contain. Mary watches the child sleep. Her face is calm, yet her eyes are deep, thoughtful, as though she already sees paths stretching far beyond this night. She knows joy, but she also knows mystery. She does not yet see the cross clearly, but she senses that this gift will one day be costly. Still, she does not pull back. Her arms hold him securely, willingly, accepting all that he is and all that he will be. Bance, Joseph's gaze moves between mother and child, his heart swelling with a love that is new and unfamiliar, fierce and gentle all at once. He understands that his role is not to possess, not to command, but to guard, to serve, to stand watch in the shadows while salvation sleeps. The weight of this responsibility settles upon him, not as a burden, but as a calling that gives shape to his life. Time seems to lose its meaning. Minutes and hours blur together in the soft rhythm of breathing, of firelight, of quiet movement. The moon continues its slow journey across the sky, its light now pale and secondary, no longer seeking Mary, because it has already found what it came for. The cracks in the ceiling frame small squares of stars, distant and cold. Yet even they seem closer tonight, as if leaning in to glimpse the wonder below. Mary finally breaks the silence, her voice low, almost a whisper. She speaks the child's name, softly, as though tasting it for the first time. The sound is simple, human, and yet it seems to resonate beyond the stone walls, beyond the hills, beyond the centuries. Joseph listens, his heart responding with a reverence that borders on fear, not of punishment, but of the vastness of what has been entrusted to them. The child stirs again, stretching, his tiny hands brushing against Mary's garment. She smiles, bending her head to kiss his forehead, her lips lingering there, as if to seal the moment within her soul. The light that once filled the shelter now rests quietly within him, hidden beneath flesh, waiting for the long years ahead when it will shine again in words, in gestures, in sacrifice. Outside, the night deepens. Inside, the first moments of a new story continue to unfold, not loudly, not triumphantly, but in whispers, in glances, in the steady beating of hearts that have been drawn into a mystery far greater than themselves. The child sleeps, and in his sleep the world seems to pause, as if all creation has bent low to listen to the rhythm of his breathing. Mary remains still, afraid that even the smallest movement might disturb him, though her arms ache and her body bears the weight of the long night. Yet there is no complaint in her, only a deep, quiet fulfillment that settles into her soul like a seal. She gazes upon his face, tracing every line and shadow with her eyes, committing him to memory, knowing that nothing in her life will ever be more precious than this moment. Joseph watches them both, standing now rather than kneeling, his back straight, his senses alert. He is no longer simply a tired traveler seeking shelter from the cold. He has become a guardian of mystery. Every sound outside sharpens his awareness. The faint rustle of wind through dry grass, the distant cry of an animal, the soft shift of stone as the earth cools. He listens not with fear, but with vigilance, as one entrusted with a treasure that must be protected, even from what cannot yet be seen. Longs the fire burns steadily, its warmth spreading through the shelter, pushing back the cold that presses at the edges. Shadows dance upon the walls, and for a moment they seem to move with intention, as though the light itself is telling a story in silence. Mary finally rises, slowly, carefully, and lays the child in the manger. It is a humble cradle, rough and worn, but she prepares it with such tenderness that it becomes a throne more fitting than gold. She smooths the hay, arranging it so that it will not prick his delicate skin, and wraps him securely before placing him down, tanged. For a brief instant, her hands linger, reluctant to let go. Then she withdraws, watching closely, ready to lift him again at the slightest stir. The child sighs in his sleep, a small sound, content and trusting. Joseph steps closer, and together they look down at him, their faces illuminated by firelight and love. In that shared gaze, there is no need for words. They understand one another completely. And outside, the night begins to change. The deepest darkness gives way to the faintest hint of dawn. Not yet light, but promise. Somewhere beyond the hills, the sky softens, though the stars still shine. The world continues its slow turning, unaware that its course has been altered forever. Angels have sung in the heavens. Shepherds have been summoned from their fields. Yet here, in this hidden place, there is only stillness. Mary sits beside the manger, her hands folded in her lap, her posture one of reverence and peace. She knows that this quiet will not last. She knows that this child, sleeping so innocently, will one day speak words that divide hearts, heal wounds, and call souls out of darkness. She knows there will be roads to walk, dangers to face, sacrifices to make. Yet she does not rush ahead in her thoughts. For now, she remains here, fully present, fully surrendered to the moment given. Manger. Joseph resumes his place near the entrance, standing watch as the first light of morning approaches. He pulls his cloak tighter, not for himself, but to better shield the shelter from the cold. His eyes return again and again to the manger, as though drawn by an invisible thread. In his silence, he offers his strength, his obedience, his very life, without knowing all that will be asked of him, but ready all the same. The child stirs once more, opening his eyes briefly. They are dark, unfocused, searching, yet in them, there seems to be a depth that does not belong to infancy alone. Mary leans forward instinctively, meeting his gaze. For a heartbeat, time feels suspended, as though eternity has touched the earth and refused to let go. Then his eyes close again, and he returns to sleep, his breathing slow and even. As the first pale light of dawn creeps into the shelter, it does not compete with the glory that came before. It simply joins it, gently, humbly, as though honoring what has already been revealed. The stable remains poor, hidden, easily overlooked, yet it has become the birthplace of hope, the threshold where heaven and earth have met in the most unexpected way. This is how the story begins, not with triumph, but with trust, not with power, but with poverty, not with noise, but with silence. The Word has become flesh and chosen to dwell among us, not in splendor, but in surrender. And in this quiet dawn, as Mary and Joseph keep watch beside a sleeping child, the world is no longer the same because God has entered it, not to conquer by force, but to save by love.